And we're live with lots of background noise. I'm Scotty North, and this is Property Realm. Welcome to the realm on another Tuesday lunchtime. Whew, I thought it was Thursday, and I was hoping there's only a day extra for the weekend, but it's not. We've got a few more days to go yet. Look, thanks for joining us today. And I was notably absent last week. I was having a nice day off with my lovely wife, and we had CO running the show there, which I heard that he did a fantastic job. But I'll invite them on here, and I've got a bit of a story about CO we'll have a chat about in a tick. Guys, I've muted you, so you might want to unmute. So while we're all focused on CO, I heard that you kind of threw a knockout blow last week in Property Realm, and a few nights before CO, you were in a charity fight match, and it was also another knockout blow.
Yeah, so Remo was fortunate to come down, and it was a great experience down at the Melbourne Pavilion. My first amateur boxing bout for charity, so it was a good night.
Yeah, and so did it go very long, mate? Because I know that RPA sponsored the event, and I did a bit of a calculation on how much it cost per second, and it's not something I particularly want to repeat because it was exorbitantly large. Mate, how come it was over so quickly?
Yeah, so it was a 45 second knockout. So the ref caught it off, 45 seconds into it.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the cost per second is for 45 seconds.
It was a lot. Let's not go there. And Karen, while we're here and it's just us talking, I thought we'd put CO now. We'll move him from dealing with the clients into dealing with our creditors and our subcontractors on the building site, because I figured that most things would be done in 45 seconds. Any bills need to be paid or work need to be done. We'll get CO onto it now, I reckon. So anyway, that's enough of the shop talk. We were going to do a certain topic today, and then last minute, Dr. Remo decided that we should do something different because he's on the pulse of our clients and the community at large. And he thought that right now everybody's talking about the election, which is fine. I've just turned off my TV in the office because I'm overlooking at the election. But what we wanted to break down today was these promises. Now, we've talked about this on the show. I've done 2 minutes tops on some certain things a few weeks ago, but it's just getting more and more intense as we get towards next Saturday. And I thought, well, let's try and break it down some more. So, Remo, where are you wanting to go with this, mate?
Mate, I find it interesting, It's like the sooner we get closer to voting or the polls, the more ridiculous the promises become, isn't it? So, I mean, what were we going to discuss before this? We were looking at wealth and how
we'll do it next week. We're doing FISOs and comparables, and we went. Let's talk about this because as I said last week, I think I'd put. Actually, it might have been 2 weeks ago. I put a 2 minute tops video out about the Labor plan for the it was called Help to Buy, and things like that. And then all of a sudden, it's in this chat. In fact, even on that super controversial video I did in 2019, they were talking about using super for people to help buy houses then. That was one of the articles I read out. And it's back on the cards again now. Like, this is what the coalition are coming out talking about, the super plan again. And it just keeps going round and round. So let's take a snapshot. So, CO, have you got a bit of an idea of what we look at? You look at the coalition, the Liberals plan. What are they saying about helping to buy?
Yeah, so I don't follow too much on the elections, but I do follow a lot of the property and what people, experts and advisors are sharing regarding to property. So what I've noticed is that there's a bit of excitement around the Liberals helping first home buyers using the super home buyer scheme, which allows first home buyers to invest up to 50,000 or 40% of their super, whichever is less, to purchase their first home. They've also got plans in helping homeowners who want to downsize. So for Australians who are over 55 who want to downsize, can now make a non-concessional contribution of up to 300,000 towards their super from the proceeds of the sale of their principal home. So that's a couple of things that I've noticed.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, that's I think I think we talked about this before. I actually got the first homeowner grant way, way, way back, and it was a simple sort of thing. There was one for one for new builds and one for established property. But right now, it seems to get more convoluted and complicated as things go on, and it becomes a bit of a minefield for people to try and navigate through. So we're going to try and cut that down for you, but it's gone from just saying here's 10 grand or 15 grand towards your first home to, oh well, if you earn between this and that, and if your mother isn't related to this person over here, then we might be able to give you some money, and it just becomes more like, as Remo said, these hot air and promises as we get closer to the election without much substance. And case in point, I mean, CO's just talked about the Liberal plan. I looked into the Labor plan a couple of weeks ago, and one of the things that they talked about was it was looking to help 10,000 people. Now, I'll get this on the screen here because we'll talk about this as we go. Where are we here? Share screen. And so I've got a snapshot here I took of, as I was working in my office. I've got a big screen playing. I can take snapshots of the telly as I go forward. Hopefully you guys can see that. And maybe not. It's gone again. There we are. And the simple fact is that we've got here digging into, it's a comparison between the coalition and the ALP. So you dig into super for your first home, and the help to buy scheme for the ALP is there, and away you go, right? So that was just a really quick one. So it's more access to the home guarantee scheme, which is something that Remo's probably going to touch on shortly, of sorts. And both of them offer no immediate rental relief. So let's get that off at the moment because I'll show you something else in a tick. And what I come to with the Labor plan was that it talked about 10,000 people a year, right? He also said that they had $339 million to help people. Now, I don't know if they're looking to go this for a year or for a short period of time, but simple math states that 10,000 people accessing 339 million is, just under $40,000 each. And when they are looking to help people between 30 and 40% of their property purchase price, that's not even going to come close. So they're either going to overspend or have to help a lot less people than they talk about. So that was the first thing with the Labor plan. And this is what we're saying here, is that it's all talk, right? I mean, some of these, is it tangible? Yeah, it can be tangible. If you can access this stuff, we'll touch on that shortly, then I'm not saying don't access this. I'm saying if you can get a grant, you can get this and that, then go for it. But like a whole bunch of other things in the past, who knows how long they're going to go for, who knows how hard it's going to be to get through, jumping the hoops, and how many people are actually going to help is the question. So these are the things that we're trying to look at here today, because there's just a lot of talk, right? And for some reason, more than other elections, and we probably know that's because of the fact of the property market at the moment, is that these are very topical, and it seems to be just about all they're talking about. Either I'm only getting the headlines pointed at me this way, which is not online headlines, it's TV headlines, so it's not like they can scrape me. But we're not seeing much about defence. There was that Chinese warship that went for a bit of a meander the other week down this way. There's not much on the environment. There's a little bit on electric cars, and the rest is about buying your first property. Sounds like a bit of a weird election to me. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's all about property this time. But I think that's the biggest concern for everybody right now, right? It's like the property market's boomed. And if you think about it, the last time we had an election at the same time that the property market was at this part of the cycle would have been, 4, maybe 5 elections ago. So it's funny how it's come around, and now that the property market's booming and it's election time, it's like, well, what can we give people? And it's all, as you said, it's all these empty promises about, let's give them what they want. Let's see how we can help people get into the property market, because there's a lot of people that still haven't bought property. And it's, I don't know. I probably won't go with either one of those people, or those political movements, whatever you want to call them, because it is just all hot air. Like, I'm not going to benefit from it. And even if I was to benefit from it, I don't think that I personally would take up either one of those opportunities. Just makes no sense to dig into my super. And then there's also the government will contribute 40% and go into property with you. So you own 60%, they own 40%. I mean, there's so much going on at the moment. Why would you? And then on top of that, if they were to give you some sort of incentive, mate, like you said, many years ago, when you got into the property market and you bought your first home with the first homeowners grant, it was really simple. You go in, you buy the house, they contribute X, done. Now, there's so much criteria, so much red tape that you have to go through in order to qualify. And then it's still an issue. Like, make it simple.
Yeah, and so let's look at the first homeowner grant. I mean, Karen might remember, but I was well over 20 years ago that I would have accessed it. And so it would have been something like 15 grand for new and maybe 10 or 7.5 for established. Like, do you remember what it would have been back then? Karen? Did you get
I
it?
got 7 exactly, or 20
7.
years ago. I got 7, and I was annoyed because the year before it was 14. It had doubled for a very short period of time, but that wasn't new or off the plan. That was an existing.
So that must have been, I would have been the same. I would have got 7 as well for an established, right? So, but who can do maths really quickly? So 7,000 went towards my $133,000 property.
Ooh, right? Mine was only 125.
Woohoo! I'm a big spender. I spent more because I got the grant. See? No, just kidding. It was the cheapest one in ages. But let's extrapolate that out. So let's just say that's the equivalent of 70,000 on a $1.3 million property, and it's also the equivalent of what, 35,000 on a $650,000 property. Am I doing my maths right there? So, as a percentage of what I used on my property, that's what we're looking at. Now, you don't get 35 grand under the current thing, and most properties are 650 grand. So the assistance that I got as a percentage was higher back then. Now, I chose to buy a cheap property because I'm a cheapskate and I like buying cheap things. And I knew the property would get dragged up, all that sort of stuff. But the point being is that it's not equivalent now under the current grant. Now, the Labor deal does make it different because they talk about a percentage. They're not talking about a cash amount. They're talking about a percentage of your purchase price up to, is it $900 or $1 million or whatever. So
depends.
Yeah, so it depends. So they are talking about a whole lot more money. Now, I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm just saying it is in more relation to the purchase price as opposed to just a one blanket size fits all thing. And so that is probably a pro to their one there. Now, let's go here. I'll share this screen again. Where are we? There we are. Okay, so this was a pretty good article. Sydney Morning Herald. Will first home buyers be better off using which scheme, right? So first home buyers could save $1,000 a month on their mortgage by using Labor, okay? But the trade-off is this. Now, as Remo said, they share in the uplift, okay, of the property. So if the property you buy doubles in price, well, then their dollar value doubles as well, right? So, but here's the other thing is that the coalition said that they can access up to 50,000 in their super. Now, I don't think I agree with that. I like the other plan where you could use super as a bond or a base, but not accessing it, right? So it was like if you had 50,000 in super, well, that 50,000 went towards as a deposit, but it wasn't used as a deposit. It was almost like a deposit bond. And I think that's better because it keeps it in super and doesn't bring it out. But they have thought about some of this. So they'll also expand their low deposit loan scheme, which allows you to purchase a 5% deposit. I think, Remo, you've got some information on that in its tick.
Yeah.
And so then we've got a $900,000 property in Sydney, 5% deposit, 45 grand. Okay, so there we go. There's your repayments, is just under $4,000. Now, with the help to buy for Labor, it would be $2,000, just under $2,500. So it's $1,100 a month saving, right? That's what they're saying here. And here's a bit of a chart. There's your difference there, okay? But here's where it gets a little bit more complicated. Now, hopefully you can see the screen here. I'll try and make it bigger. We'll make it bigger. No, it's disappearing on me. Okay. They've got to get their ads in, so I can't make it any bigger. All right. So if the property values decrease, right, this is what we've got to look at. If the property values decrease, then it's gone from, what do we start with, 900,000 to just under 800,000. So Labor's share has dropped, and the equity in the home has dropped more substantially on the coalition's plan. So the cash position is different, okay? If you have to sell it and pay it off, this is what you owe under the coalition plan. This is what you owe under the Liberal plan. Labor plan, sorry. So there's a $20,000 difference, $21,000. Now, here's the thing. If property values increase like they have over the last 10 years, which I'm not saying is going to happen, right? But this is just a scenario thing they've set up. I don't mind the scenario. So the property's then worth 2.2 million in 10 years' time. So what are we taking that to 2032? Yeah, don't know if it'll be that. But anyway, the equity in the home changes to this. So we've got a much more positive equity in the coalition. And the cash position is that, okay? So that's it there. So you have $455,000 more under the coalition plan if property prices go up than you do under the Labor plan. So the Labor share has jumped here to 660 grand. So they've put in 270,000 and they come out with 660 grand. So almost $400,000 up on your property under the Labor plan. So Labor's gouging you 400 grand on that. But if property prices drop, the Labor plan's better. What do you guys think about that? You can see there's some thought of sorts put into some of this in the ups and downs. Tell me what you think. What do you reckon?
Well, as I said, I won't go with either of these options. Why would I want to give more money to the government when we're already paying so much in tax and everything else? I don't want to share with them.
That's very selfish. That's very selfish of you, Remo. Not very community-minded there. Don't want to pay tax. Okay, so let's say you had to get into the market and you had to buy a $900,000 property like they here. So which one would you prefer, right? So it's going to depend on what? Well, it's going to depend on if you can make it happen on 5%. Do I want to take the Labor's help, right? Because I can put a whole wad of cash in there. It's going to lower my monthly payments by $1,100. That's a fair bit of money, right? That's a big chunk. I mean, that's a lot in a home budget. So is it going to depend on, do you want your home budget more buoyant each month? Or do you think the property's going up or down? If you think the property's going down, would you buy it? Probably not, right? Because at 5% deposit, you're kind of screwed either way. So
I think if you're buying now when we're pretty high up the top of the market and it's set to start to ease or at least settle or come back to some sort of reality in 2025 and the next few years after that, if you're buying now at the top and you're going to sell then, well, you might want to go with Labor where it doesn't matter if you lose all their money. But if you plan on keeping the property a little bit longer, then the other option is good. But as we keep saying, and it keeps showing up, the more the government throws into either first home grants or these sort of options, all it does is push prices up, and you will often see people advertising prices, especially for first home owners. And then if you ring them up and go, hey, I'm not a first home owner, what's the price? What do you know? It miraculously drops the exact amount of the first home owner grant. So,
yeah, that's crap. Okay, well that's a good point. Now let me ask you this, right? I mean, Sia, you still got to answer, but so you got a few more seconds to think, mate. But do you think that looking at these figures here, now they would have had some. This is Sydney Morning Herald. I don't know if an economist did this or if it was just the reporter, right? You don't have to be a genius to do this. It's a pretty good job. You don't have to be a genius to sit down and for 3 weeks and work it out, right? It's just simple math. So we can assume the government has done this, both parties. If we can assume that, then let's say they probably don't want the people buying to be underwater. So I'm looking at these going, every single one of these grants and options, bonuses, whatever you want to call them, is completely tailored around the assumption that property is going to go up in price. Otherwise, they're leaving people in a really big lurch, and they're going to want to do that, right? So it's not that they don't want to do it because they're nice people. It's they don't want to do it because it will be remembered and it will stop them being in power next time. That's what I'm getting at. So, therefore, my assumption is that they will do everything possible to keep a property market buoyant. Otherwise, they shoot themselves in the foot. Now, what do you guys think about that?
I think you're 100% correct. Yeah. And I think if this is going to come out, we're already seeing a buoyant market. First of all, I don't know where you're going to buy a property in Sydney for $900,000 unless you're buying a bachelor apartment. I live in a rural, so to speak, area, and I actually had a look at some of the properties for sale here. There is 4 properties for sale that fits the criteria of what they're saying, right? And this is in the area that I live in. You're not going to find property for this cheap in those areas. So you would have to buy something really run down or something very cheap and crap in order to qualify for any of this. So yeah, I don't see how this is going to work. I don't see how many people are going to qualify. And if you do qualify, I don't see what you're going to buy for it unless you go and buy an apartment.
Yeah. Yeah, well, this is the problem. I mean, you come back early, we touched on there's just hot air. There's all these requirements. Before it was, you're a first homeowner, here's your check. Now it's, what's happening on the moon this weekend and did your dog bark? Can you get a check or not? There's a big difference. So, CEO, tell me your thoughts on this. Where are you at? Because what we've got here is we've got, like, I've got a property, my family's a bit older. My eldest is driving, all that sort of stuff. So we're probably more advanced in the family stage. We've got Remo, like single. Are you single, Remo? Do I tell everyone that you're single? Do I put that out there? Yeah, single dad with kids. CO, young family, married couple, that type of thing. So we've got a bit of a mix of the families here, and we've got Karen, who's a party animal, going out with her dogs and Viking buddies every weekend, right? So we've got a pretty broad mix here of people. Now, Karen and I don't qualify. We're not in this first homeowner sort of grant sort of stuff or this buying scheme, right? Because we've got property. So it's over to you guys. So, CEO, how does this affect a young family like yourself?
Yeah, well, I think one thing we haven't touched on, considering the first home buyer market, it's they're probably, the majority of them are probably not making decisions based on the Liberal and Labor calculations. Either way, however it falls out, homeowners will still make emotional decisions as to where and how they're going to purchase their houses, and as an effect, from what I can see, it'll continue to increase prices because they make, and we've seen this over the last couple of years with first home buyers making emotional decisions on where to buy and how to go about it. So from what I can see, the more that they can borrow, the more ideal property that they can buy based on what their intentions are on an emotional basis, and I'm talking on a average overall basis for small families. Even for myself, fortunate for me, I have access to some of this information, so I can have a bit of a broader scope. But even from dealing with day-to-day first home buyers, the way they make decisions, they have a fixed mindset on where or what type of property they're looking for, and they're looking for the best thing that they can get in that within that certain time frame. And whether it's Labor or Liberal, whoever's going to help them move towards that emotional decision, that's going to be the thing that's going to drive them. And if we see that happening on a overall basis across Australia, you can definitely see that prices will increase in the short term, at least anyway.
Yeah, that's right. Now we've got a comment here. Now, if I put this on the screen, it's probably going to... Oh, there we go. It fits. This is from Mick Remo. So if the Libs get in, do they get both grants, i.e. the first homeowner 5% deposit plus super pull out of either 40% or 50K? And can a couple contribute to their super pull out to the purchase? Yeah, so that's a good question. I don't know if I've got the answer to that, but I'm assuming that that's two different schemes, and it's not like the specials at the shops where, you know, how you buy one, get one free, or you get, 30% off the next cheapest, you can only get one or the other. That doesn't normally work that way. Now, I'm not saying it's the case, but normally in the government, if you qualify for this and you qualify for that, you can get both. They have done that in the past where you get two of the schemes. I'm not saying that's the correct answer, but I would suggest that there's probably more restrictions about your ability to get to these schemes than you can't get this scheme because you got the other one. Do you know what I mean? And so, Remo, you looked into some of the... Well, just tell us what you looked into, mate.
Yeah, so I looked into so there's a first home owners or buyers grant. So the first home buyers grant. Then there's a new home guarantee, and then there's also first home family guarantee. So there's sort of three that's sort of available to the market right now. You can get a first home loan deposit scheme as well as a family home guarantee. Now, the family home guarantee is purely for single parents with at least one dependent, and you can buy a house with a 2% deposit, and then you can also get the first home loan deposit scheme as well, where they guarantee and do some funky stuff. The issue that I have with this is, okay, so one of the good things is you have to have earned a maximum of $125,000 a year, which most single parents on their own would be well within that. For single dads or single mums that earn more than that, well, you're screwed. You're not going to be eligible for this. One of the other interesting things I found as well is, even if you've been separated for 3, 4, 5, 6 years and you haven't actually legally divorced, you don't qualify for the scheme because you're not single, even if you've been living on your own and you're not with anyone. So yeah, it's there's a whole bunch of minimum criteria that you have to go through. You can't qualify to get help from anybody. The other thing is New South Wales. I'll speak about New South Wales because I know it. You can only buy for a maximum of up to 900,000 in city centres, and for the rest of the state, city centres and regional centres. And for the rest of the state, it's 750,000. Now, as I said before, I live in a sort of rural area. The minimum, there's 4 properties in this area that's selling for less than 750,000, and they're almost knockdown rebuilds. Victoria's 800, and then 500. Now, the interesting thing is, it used to be 800 and 600 for New South Wales. So you could only buy something for up to 800 or 600 if it's in like a rural or non-regional city centre. But we're at the top of the market. Everywhere else is up to 500 in rural or not regional, not city centres, and 600 in regional and city centres. So, I mean, if I look at the facts about what's been presented, I don't understand how people are going to go and buy property, because there's just nothing available at the moment anymore where you can go and buy a house for less than 750,000. The market's just not there anymore. As I said before, you want to buy in that price bracket, you're going to have to get yourself into an apartment. And if I'm a single parent, the last thing I want to do is live in an apartment. The other thing I will add, though, is we've spoken about the 40% that you can get out of super, right? If this gets pushed through. The one thing that the one thing that I don't think has been mentioned is if you go and sell that property, that 40% that you took out of super has to go back. The uplift that you got in your property, proportional to the amount that you invested through from your super, that also has to go back into your super. Okay, so if you've got $1 million property and you put, well, that's probably not the best. Let's say $1 million property, you put in $50,000. Property goes up to 1.5. You got to pay back the $50,000, plus you got to pay back the percentage of that back into your super as well. So it's still an investment through your super. Super's still going to benefit, but you just won't have the uplift, the full uplift. You'll only get 60% of the uplift, and 40% of that uplift is going to go back into super.
Yeah, so, and I think that's where they put some thought around it, which is half okay. Probably my comment on that is it's definitely fueling, it's just pulling more and more money into the housing market on speculation, right? And we're in this market. I don't want that. I want stability. I don't want crazy amounts of money coming in for no reason,
Exactly.
and making things, fluctuate unnecessarily. We already know that there's cycles and times and things like that, but we don't need any help for that any more help for that to happen, right? So,
No.
all right, I'm very mindful of the time here because I wasn't sure how long we'd talk about this topic because it's politics and we don't really love that. There's some comments here while finishing this article. Firstly, to things to note that, where are we? So the scheme's prices are targeted in each state's housing market, as Remo's touched on. So that same article, that same example here we looked at with this chart, this is based on Sydney. It could look like 800,000 in Melbourne, right, instead of 900,000. So that's one thing to notice about this. So we are talking about lower end in each area. And then they get these guys to come and talk about this, and what they're saying is right. So there's this a mortgage broker has commented here. I don't know who it is, but he advised that low deposit buyers choose a property in a sought-after location and check if they can afford their loan. Now, that's good advice. The problem is that property in sought-after location isn't probably going to be in the price point of what we're talking about here, and you're going to have to act like that to get something in those locations because there's people that are cashed up that will just swoop in and get it anyway. So it doesn't really help. And the other thing we haven't even talked about, and we're not going to because we're about to call it a day, is that there's the rental. It hasn't changed rentals. And the more that prices go up and the more the interest rates are going to go up, that's going to put a pressure on rentals. We haven't even got to that point, right? Where's the rental help?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that are unanswered here, but I think we've talked about enough. Is there any final comments from anyone, starting with you, Karen?
Look, I quick did a search, found an article from 2014 where it said the last time we had housing affordability was in 1961, and that was just prior to the first home owners grant being offered. Ever since that's been offered for the last, what are we up to, 40-something years, housing affordability for first homeowners has dropped and home ownership has dropped drastically. So kind of says something.
Right, so there we are there. So this is the article you're talking about. So, yep.
Yes.
The highest level of ownership since was in the 1961 census, blah, blah, before they initiated the first homeowners 3 years before. Okay, so there you go.
So all it does is increase prices and doesn't make anything more affordable.
Which is what we've been saying for like ever.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to happen again now.
Yes.
So we're about to see a second wave
continue.
of property increase. Yeah, like we're just going to see a second wave now because there's going to be so many people that's going to fall for all this hot air and go, yep, I want in on that. Yep. And then it's just going to push the property market up even more, making it even more unaffordable for people to get it. And before you know it, they're not even going to be able to afford the property they wanted because they've just contributed to another increase. So anyway, it'll be interesting.
So is that your final thoughts, Remo?
That's mine, yeah. I've got nothing
CO?
more.
Yeah, final thoughts.
Yeah, oh, serious. He's just like agreeing. He's just
He's
like,
worn
yeah.
out
final
last
thoughts.
week.
I did my final thoughts 15 minutes ago, Scotty. I don't know what you're talking about. Why
That
am
was
I still
last
here?
week.
That was, you know.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we haven't solved anything, but I think at least we've tried to break down the differences in the two things. That was a really good article. I'll put some links up here shortly for these two articles in as we go, because I'm pretty good at multitasking, and right now I'm doing that, as you can see. Amazing stuff there by Scotty North. All right. So what's on next week? Are we going to do our FISOs and other bits and pieces next week?
I think so.
Yeah, we can. Or we
So
can talk
the
about,
question we're getting is talking about comparables, right? So we've had some people looking at some of our industrial sites, but also on housing. For example, I've got one client, CEO, that you and I have been talking to, and she's like, well, is this all we've got in the area? How do I know if this duplex is well priced? How do I know about these people? How do you get comparables? Because we're getting prices go up and up. So if you look back at a comparable now, and I mean, Karen looks at stuff all the time, well, what do we do? Do we put it on the dartboard and say, do we increase it by 5, 10, 15, 20% as it goes out? Like, how do we guess? Was it sold last week? Was it sold last year? Because in commercial terms, like selling something last year, you go, well, that's okay normally, but not this year. We've had 30% plus increases in prices. It's irrelevant. So this is the stuff. We're going to talk about that next week, because I know that a lot of our people are wanting to know about that. But as I said, Remo kiboshed that, and we had to get into politics before Saturday. All right.
And hope we have a result by next Tuesday.
Well, I don't know. They opened pre-polling, and there was like 280,000 people voted on the first day. So I'm pretty sure a lot of people have their minds made up. So I'm yet to vote. I just don't like going on Saturday around a whole bunch of people. I'd rather find somewhere nice and quiet and go there. But anyway, that's it. All right, let's call it a day, because now we're just going on. Thank you to the Realmers for another great show. If you missed anything, of course, you can push the replay button and watch it again. And who wouldn't want to watch good content like that? I have chucked the links where the videos are playing. If you need more links, just email us. And of course, you can contact us on, or go to the Property Realm Facebook group. That'd be a great place to start. Or you can call us 1300 667789, and of course email us on anything you want, really. Show at Property Advice. Whatever you want, it'll all come to us. We're always there to listen. All right, that's it from us. We'll see you next Tuesday, and hope you vote well on Saturday. That's it. Property Realm over and out.